Long ago, in the heart of the Maasai lands, there lived a man named Ole Kioko. He had once been a part of the village, a skilled herdsman known for his wisdom and strength. But over time, the people of the village grew envious of him. His cattle thrived more than theirs, his land was always green, and his advice, though wise, was often ignored. Eventually, out of jealousy and fear, they cast him away, forcing him to live alone in the wilderness. For many years, Ole Kioko lived in isolation at the edge of the great savannah. His once thriving herds dwindled, and he tended a small garden that barely grew enough to feed him. Yet he did not complain. The stars above and the earth beneath remained his companions, though loneliness weighed heavily on his heart. One night, as Ole Kioko sat under the brilliant light of the moon, something extraordinary happened. A stone, shining like silver, fell from the sky and landed in his garden. When he approached it, the stone glimmered, and before his eyes, it melted into the soil. He thought little of it, returning to his humble hut, unaware of the magic he had just witnessed. The next morning, Ole Kioko awoke to a miraculous sight. His once barren garden was filled with fruits, vibrant, colorful, and glistening with dew. They were fruits he had never seen before, large and juicy, their fragrance filling the air. He picked one and tasted it. Sweetness like he had never known burst in his mouth, and as he ate, he felt a strength and joy he hadn't felt in years. That night, as the moon rose again, more fruits blossomed, even more plentiful than before. And so it happened every night. The magical garden bloomed with an endless supply of delicious fruits, giving him enough to eat and even share with the animals of the forest. It wasn't long before the news of the magical garden spread. The same villagers who had cast Ole Kioko away now came, begging for his forgiveness. Their own crops had withered, and they were hungry. Among them was the village chief, who had a beautiful young daughter named Nazirian. But Ole Kioko, still remembering their cruelty, only had one request: let Nazirian go to school. Let her learn about the world beyond the village. The chief, desperate for the fruit, agreed. Nazirian, eager to learn, began her education with great excitement, while the villagers waited, hoping Ole Kioko would forgive them. But the magic of the stone did not stop with the garden. One evening, as Ole Kioko rested by his fire, the animals of the forest came: lions, elephants, chimpanzees, and even mighty crocodiles. These wild creatures, usually feared by the Maasai, became his companions. The lions roared softly at his side, the monkeys swung playfully from the trees in his garden, and the elephants trumpeted joyfully, protecting his home. The villagers, seeing this, were both in awe and fear. They dared not come too close anymore, for they knew the animals would protect Ole Kioko from any harm. His home, once lonely and forgotten, became a place of wonder and beauty, filled with laughter and the songs of the wild. Nazirian, in her studies, grew wise and kind-hearted. She would often visit Ole Kioko, bringing him stories from her lessons and playing with the animals who had become her friends. The man who had once lived alone was now surrounded by the love of nature and the companionship of a young girl whose future was bright. The villagers, ashamed of their past, continued to beg for forgiveness. But Ole Kioko simply smiled, knowing that true magic lay not in the fruits or the animals, but in the power of kindness, learning, and the strength of a heart that never hardened, even in loneliness. And so, Ole Kioko lived the rest of his days in peace, with the wild animals as his protectors, and Nazirian as his joy. The villagers learned from him, slowly changing their ways, and though they never fully won back his trust, they came to respect the man who had found a deeper connection with the earth and its creatures. As for the magical stone, its legacy lived on, not in the fruits that it grew, but in the lesson it taught, that even in isolation, a good heart can create a world of wonders.